Hi everyone, and welcome to the Nintendo Nerds. My name is Backrolls, one half of the Nintendo Nerds, here to help you craft and play your way to a better day. We met in the not-too-distant past during some spirited online Mario Kart, and discovered we share a love for art, gaming, and all things Nintendo. And we want to share our nerdy knowledge with you. So stick around, because in today's video, we'll be sharing an easy watercolor tutorial to make some Nintendo Valentines, including sharing some coloring pages, and some not safe for work ones. Let's go over everything you're going to need. A pencil, some pens, make sure they're waterproof, an eraser, watercolor paint and brushes, a few cups of water, and most importantly, you're going to need watercolor paper. Now, there are some supplies you can buy discount, but I think most importantly, you're going to make sure that you're going to buy some paper that says watercolor paper on the label. Now let me show you why. This is an example on printer paper, and printer paper can really buckle immediately once you apply paint to it. It really can't hold up to the amount of water required for watercolor. Mixed media paper, also a no-go. Paint has trouble settling into the paper and pools all over the surface. This is using my best paint and best brushes, so no matter what, you're not going to be happy with the result if you don't use good paper. Which watercolor paper do I most recommend? For that, you're going to have to click subscribe. Once we hit 100 subscribers, I'll be sharing my test and review of 10 different kinds of watercolor paper, from your best budget choice to my favorite high-end brand. Getting to 100 subscribers is a tiny goal. I think we can make it. And I'll be happy to share my test results. But for now, let's show you a couple of easy tutorials that you can make right away. First up, watercolor mushroom. To draw them, you're going to make a large bowl, and you're going to almost complete it. That's going to be the top of the mushroom. Fill out the bottom of the mushroom with another oval shape. And from there, draw in your spots. Anywhere you please. No mushroom is the same. 2 tiny cylinders for the eyes, and a little smile. And I also like to draw in a gleam where I'm going to leave some white in the paper. I just wanted to share a couple of the tools that I use when making my little mushroom guy. So first things first, I love to sketch on watercolor paper with a Pentel graph cube. I like this guy in the 0.9 because it's extra soft and thick. So that way, if I am not sure what line I want yet, I don't have to really commit to it, and I don't have to have a really hard time erasing lines that I don't want. Let me show you what I'm talking about. In this example here, if I am not really sure, like in this mushroom, the curve of the line I want, I'm probably just gonna scratch it until I'm really certain that's the curve that I want. Say if this was not, or I wanted it to be a sharper, and I continue on out until that looked closer to the curve that I wanted. Complete that out, and then it's much easier to erase soft graphite. You do a lot of erasing of soft graphite on watercolor paper anyway, if you like to sketch out first with it. From there, it's much easier to do your inking. One of my very favorite tools, again, is Pentel. They're about half of my arsenal. This is the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen. It allows me to make really beautiful lines. Now, this is something that I had to practice a lot with and sometimes still struggle with. I think that learning to ink with a brush pen is really one of my favorite tools that I've learned, though, and I really think it's worth picking up. If something like that scares you, there's a couple other options that you can use. I just make sure that anything that I'm going to ink with is going to be a waterproof pen. And so with that, I have a Micron and a Faber-Castell. They come in all different sizes. I think both brands are great. I think they both have terrific pens in they have their various strengths. The Microns make really, really nice, precise nibs, and I think the Faber-Castells make really good brushes with a lot of ink that hold up for a longer time. Like their 1.5 is really great. The Microns are really great for doing things like scoring. If you want to get in really precise, which I will later on this code around the eyes and the mouth, I'm going to use the Micron. A brush like this would be another option if something like the Pentel brush pen scares you. It's a little thicker, it's more similar to a marker. Just depends on your preference. So with that, I'm going to ink the mushroom. Now, I think one of the best tips that I got is actually, let me show you. I think it's easier to fix a strong and slightly wrong line than a couple of tentative lines where you're really not sure if this is where you're gonna go. Oh gee, am I doing this curve right? Well, now I've effed it up, and now I have to fix it because the weight's all wrong, and it looks shredded, and then I have to, it's just easier to do a strong line. That looks terrible, so I would rather go in, have a line like this, where my hand wobbles a bit, and I make a mistake, and then I can fix something like that, if that's akin to the piece, if I'm careful. So I would just add some weight to the bottom half of that. Now that's a really thick, juicy line. It just depends on what you're looking for. But anyway, I think a strong curved line is way better than a tentative one. So as best you can, try to complete brushstrokes like that in one fell pass. Let me show you what I'm talking about. It would be way harder to fix this line if I'm tentative about it. So I'm just going to go for it. It's good to go a little bit thick to thin if you're doing cartoony style, which I really enjoy. And I like to be able to turn the page while I'm inking. I think that's important because your hand inks much more comfortably when it follows that concave line. So this is a really small sheet of paper, but if you have a big sheet of paper, tape it to something where you can have some flexibility and you can flip it around. Now I really don't want to leave this huge curved line for last, because that's going to do a psychological mind game on me. And I'm just more likely to mess it up if I'm freaking out about it. I feel like that Mario Party game, the one with the jackhammers where you have to cut out the fossil shape. As I get, the more art I make, the more comfortable I will make in completing a full, really loopy line like that. But they're difficult. They take a lot of practice. So try your best and don't sweat it if you have to shred the line a little bit, because this is a handmade gift we're talking here. And as I've discovered, I've given away art to people that I wasn't very proud of, that people then told me they put on their wall just because they were really happy to receive a handmade gift like that. So I promise, people will love it. Just do your best and make it with love. And the chisel has a nice flat end. I can run along these sides because I like to make these Curved eyes with these long, skinny sides. They're kind of like good and plenties. Which is a pretty common shape in animation. Okay, I'm adding this one to my stack for the paper testing, and I'll show you how to properly paint one of these in the next clip. One of the best tips to remember about watercolor is that paint will only travel where you've already made the page wet. So what I'm showing you here is called wet on wet technique. First, I get the space of the mushroom where I want it to be red wet, and then I apply a mix of my Winsor Red Deep and my cadmium red. Work quickly. As long as the paper is still glossy, you can continue to add pigment and play with it on the page. Now I'm happy with the pigment level here, but I'm actually going to reduce a little bit of the water. The way I do that is by taking a tiny shred of paper towel. I curl it into a tip and absorb just a tiny bit of the water standing on the surface. Once it's looking like a moisture level and a coverage that I'm pretty happy with, it's time to let it dry. Now you can naturally let it dry, but it's certainly much faster to use a heat gun or a hairdryer. Depending on how intense you like the color, once the page is completely dry, you can apply another coat. Watercolor will always dry less intense than it appears on the page. So in order to get really vibrant mushrooms, like Super Mario mushrooms, I'm actually going to go over this one 4 times. Just lifting a little piece of hair. And I tried to correct that with a brush, and I ended up leaving a little bit more paint than I should have there. It leaves a tiny bit extra pigment than I intended, but I'm going to go over this multiple times, so by the end, it won't be as visible. Now, some people say they don't blend their paints, but I can't imagine not blending my paints. It allows to get such a nice transition of color in a way that you can't really achieve unless you're blending from a really orangey red to a nice medium red. What you're seeing down here is wet on dry. I'll be testing both of these techniques on all of my different kinds of paper in my review. Wet on dry allows you to apply more bold pigment. but it's not quite as easy to cover one large space. So it's great for something like this. I add a little bit of natural sienna to my flesh tone in order to make it a little bit more of the color I'm looking for, because it was a little paler than I intended once I applied it to the page. I'm a little more liberal with the natural sienna on the right side because that's the way I've been shading the piece. Because my wash is still wet, it will blend into a really lovely creamy shadow. Once that's dry, I'm going to use some of my rose to just add a couple of cute little cheeks. I decided I wanted even more vibrancy, so I went for one last coat of red. I was a lot more liberal with my Winsor Red Deep on the right side, just again to bring out the richness and make it look a little more natural, like the light is coming from the left side of the mushroom. Great! Now that we're happy with that, it's time to write our Valentine note. I'm just doing a little bit of touch-up with Posca pen. Posca pens can be really expensive. I love to have just a few black and white to really make my lines pop. Now, write whatever message you like, whatever calls to you. You're making this for someone special, so if this is a video gamer in your life, I'm sure they'll appreciate some kind of silly Mario pun. Great. So that's the mushroom. And really quickly, I'll show you how I did a superstar as well. Again, I'm using wet on wet technique, and I used a blend of my Winsor & Newton Lemon Yellow and a bit of Holbein Brilliant Pink, just to create a bit of complexity. Once I was complete with the wet on wet wash, I did a little bit of dabbing with a paper towel to give it a nice stippled effect. One of the best things about watercolor paint is that it's really forgiving while it's still wet. A lot of people are really scared by it, but once you learn water control and you work on good paper, you'll really be amazed at just how versatile it can really be. Now I wanted this star to pop, so I decided I was going to use some of my metallic fine techs. I'd like to shout out to one of our guests from the Nintendo Builders Corner, Scout the Robot. She gave me a couple of great tips on using these. If you want a really opaque metallic finish, like I painted in the Majora's Mask painting a couple of months ago, then make sure to spritz the metallic fine tech and let it sit for a while. But if you want a very light coating, spritz and move quickly on the paint so that you get just a light shimmer like I have here. Because lemon yellow is pretty opaque, I'm just touching up my lines again with Posca now that I'm finished. And there you have it. 2 ideas to get you started. A superstar and a super mushroom for that super person in your life. Now, if you're not feeling as artistically inclined, we are going to share on our Twitter a couple of coloring pages that I made. One is a classic mushroom, and one is a little bit more fun. I had this celestial mushroom idea I couldn't resist. Please don't shut me down, Nintendo. I had so much fun drawing it. So print one of these out if you don't feel like drawing, and color it and share it with someone that you love in your life. We hope you've enjoyed this video and that you're feeling a little bit inspired to make a card for someone in your life. Get creative. There's all kinds of Mario super power-ups and Mario baddies that you could make a great card out of. Thanks for watching this video. If you make some of your own art, please share it with us. We'd love to see what you create. As always, we hope you leave this video ready to pick up a Pro Controller, a paintbrush, or a pen. I'm Backrolls, and this has been the Nintendo Nerds.